Yeah, we can start.
Right? We can.
Yeah.
All
So,
right. Before we begin with the whole session, guys, could we have a short 10 to 20 seconds introduction of you all who's there on the call with us?
do
How
we
about
have do we have cut short here? Did they join?
I am not too sure. We can begin with small individual introductions. Prince, you can begin with that.
Yeah. So, good morning, everyone. This is Prince Srivastav, and I'm working as a software developer consultant. So, in today's session, we are going to see about reactive state management with Mobx in React. So before we get started, let's have a small intro from you guys, and you can volunteer for it.
Yeah, so I will go first. My name is Namish Verma, and currently I am working as a freelance full stack software developer.
Yeah, hello everyone. This is Akash Patel, and I am working as a graduate analyst at Deutsche Bank.
Hello, I can go next. Uh, my name is Pragati Singh, and I am a software developer at R Systems, and really looking forward to this. Thank you.
So, hello everyone, my name is Utkarsh, and I'm currently working as a main site developer, and I'm in the learning phase of React.
Hi everyone, I'm Dipanjan Paul, and I'm working as a project manager. I'm really looking forward to this meetup. This is my first one, so expecting great things from it. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Sharadev Atre. I am in a learning phase of React. So I think I come here because I can learn. It's my first. I think it will be a great experience for me.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, I'm Rohit, and I have been working as a full stack software developer since last 5 years, and I've been working on React since past 2 years. And today, I and Prince are going to deliver this workshop on reactive state management with Mobx. Uh, Prince, I think we can start now.
Yeah, sure. So we are going to start with reactive state management with Mobx in React, and let's have a question from you all. So, how many of you have used this product? You can turn on your mic and reply, or you can reply in the message section also. No one?
I have used this. I think I started with my first email address was on Outlook, so I've used this for a long time.
Okay, so let's see, are there any gamers here? Have you played this game or do you know this game? This is a game of EA Sports Battlefield.
Yes, sir.
So, do you know that these two products have a similar thing? They have a thing in common. Can anyone tell me what is it?
Are they built on React?
Yeah, they both are built on React, and for state management, they both are using Mobx. So yeah, we can build games also in React. So Mobx, simple scalable state management. Topics that we are going to cover in this session are pure and impure functions, reactive programming, immutability versus mutability. That is the basic difference that people from Redux background and people from Mobx background will get to know. Then we will study about the Mobx core concepts and then we will conclude the session. So let's get started with pure functions. As you can see that we have a function here, sum, which just returns the sum of the two values entered here. So pure functions are memorizable. That means JavaScript memorizes the state of these functions. So for example, uh, if we use sum 2 comma 3 somewhere, then JavaScript automatically replaces it with 5 wherever we have used the same parameters throughout our code. And pure functions don't have any side effects. So side effects can be anything such as network calls or logging into the console. So this is the concept of pure functions. Now, entirely different question. How many of you are taxpayers?
I am.
Do you like paying taxes?
I don't know how to answer that one, but we cannot get away with it, so we have to.
Yeah. So taxes are like we don't like them, but without taxes it is impossible to build a functioning country. So we have to do that. So similar thing is with mutation. Okay. Now let's see functions with side effects or impure functions. So here we have a console log. So this is our side effect. And now this function is no more pure, it's impure. Let's start with reactive programming. So before we dive into reactive
Before,
programming, yeah,
sorry to interrupt, Prince. So, can we go back to the previous slide?
yes,
So, I just want to confirm the difference between this function and the last function that we saw. So basically, the last function, the first one will give us the result faster as compared to this one.
no, it's not like that. It's basically that when JavaScript will compile our code,
Mm-hmm.
so in the previous function, it is memorizable. Memorizable means it can be cached. So memorizable is basically caching the output of some 2 comma 3. So
Okay.
suppose let me show you some code. Suppose we have sum is equal to add 2 comma 3 and our function is simple sum a comma b and that is returning a plus b.
Okay.
So
I think we'll have to change the
yeah,
variable.
yeah, just a second. So whenever we can use this sum throughout our code. So this is like pure functions. Okay. And
Mhm.
so whenever JavaScript compiles our code, it will not call this function every time, and it will just replace the output of this with sum.
So that means it will reduce the function calls, and
Yes.
so in a way it is faster as compared to the impure functions.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So yes, we can continue with the next slide.
So before we deep dive into the reactive programming stuff, we should understand what is a reactive system. So a reactive system has basically four principles. It should be responsive. So by responsive, it means that it should be quick to react to all users in order to ensure the consistency and positive user experience. Okay. And then it should be resilient. Resilient means that the system should apply proper design and architecture in order to ensure the responsiveness. It should be scalable. That means that if after 1 month or 2 months we are trying to add a new feature, then we should not have to write like a lot of code, and we should not have to change our previous existing code, and we can add new features without breaking the previous code. It should be message driven. So message driven means it should be like event based or actors based. Okay. So the system should react to events and actions. So reactive programming is all about controlling side effects, how we manage our side effects. So let's see, in this example we have a button, and on the click of that button we have added a event listener, and if the click difference is 1000 milliseconds, then we will console log our output. Okay, and then we will update our last click count. So we can handle side effects imperatively here, and if we try to do it via reactive programming, then RxJS comes into role. So how many of you know what RxJS is?
I think we have people who have worked with Angular must know this, because observable is very much used in, yes, very much used in Angular for HTTP calls.
Yeah. So RxJS is basically reactive JavaScript. Okay, so it is a library for reactive JavaScript. Let's see some of the functions from here. That we have throttle time, scan, and subscribe. So what are these things, and what do they do? So observable is basically a event emitter that starts emitting the event when we subscribe to it. Okay, so let's see what throttle time does. You can go to rxmarbles.com and play around with all these stuff to know the exact meaning of each of the functions that RxJS provides. So let's see throttle time. So throttle time is basically it will hide away all the events between the time interval 25. So if we move this marble, so we can see that the events that have occurred between the time period 25, they are omitted. So this is the input and this is the output data. Similarly here G is omitted. So this is what throttle time does. It will not react to events that have time 1000 milliseconds difference. Okay, so here it is 25 and in our example it is 1000. And then we have dot scan. So how many of you know what is dot reduce method in JavaScript? Has anyone used reduce method?
Yeah, I
Yes, I have also used it.
So what it does?
I used it to sum over an array.
Yeah. So basically, reduce, this scan method is something similar to the reduce method of JavaScript, and it takes a callback which has two values. We can just go and see the definition of scan. So it takes a callback as a parameter, and here it takes two values. This y is the initial value and x is the value where we want to add things or do, or we can manipulate things here. So see, this is the input array and this is the output. So you can see that it is adding it to the previous value and providing the output. So 3 is output of 2 plus 1, and similarly we have next value as 3, so it is giving us 6. If we move it here, then we have 4 plus 3, 7. So this is how scan works. So the difference between these two are it will provide us a better code structure and it will handle things automatically from here, rather than here we are declaring a variable count and then we are consoling it to consoling the output to the console. Okay, so this is the basic difference between handling things imperatively and with reactive programming. Now mutability versus immutability. So in object oriented programming, immutable object is an object whose state cannot be modified after it is created. That is, we cannot modify its value. Okay, and in contrast to a mutable object, which is a changeable object. So suppose we have a user object and we have first name and last name as its like uh, variables. Okay, so we can if we are going through the immutable object, then we cannot do something like user dot first name is equal to something else. We cannot do it like that. So let's understand the difference between these two things. So how many of you are from how many of you know that what redux is and you have used redux?
I have used Redux, and I understand that Redux only takes immutable objects. So we try to use only immutable objects in Redux, because as soon as if we mutate our object, it starts to show unwanted results in Redux.
Yeah. So basically, can you do you know this syntax?
So I think here we are spreading the user operator to copy all the properties from the user. We are spreading the user object to copy all the properties from the user object into the new user object.
Yes.
And we are modifying the last name property.
Yeah.
So basically, it will copy the first name property as it is from the existing user object and create a new last name property.
Yeah. And it will replace the existing last name.
Yes.
Okay. So this user object is a totally new object. And if we are directly changing the last name, then we are mutating it. So immutability is how Redux works, and mutability is how Mobx works. So we directly mutate the object, and rest things are handled by Mobx itself. So let's come to state. So state is the condition that someone or something is in at a particular time. So in Redux we have a single state, and every time we do changes immutably, and the whole state object is replaced by a new state object. So suppose we have a user state, it has first name and last name. Then if we go with the Redux, then we have to uh, immutate the user, and here it will just create a new state and return it. While in Mobx we can just directly mutate our state and change the last name to Srivastav. Okay.
So basically, in Redux, we have to create a new object every time we want to make a change in the existing object. So we cannot
Yes.
make the change directly, but in Mobx, we can directly change the property of the existing object or
Yes.
the existing state.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that is the power of Mobx. Now the local component state React hooks. So how many of you what React hook is, and which React hook do we use for state management in our local components? Anyone?
I think we use use state React hook.
Yeah. So for those who don't know what React hooks are, so this is a small intro to it. So basically, this is our component, React component, and it is a functional component. Here we have use state, which is given provided us by React, and this is used to manage our local state. So use state will return a tuple, and in the tuple the first value will be the current value, and the second value will be a function that determines the new value once we change the current value. Once the re-render happens. Okay. So initially it will take a initial value, and that will be provided in our current value. So when we call set current value 10, okay, so what will happen is React will re-render the component, and then it will reassign this current value and set current value, and instead of initial value it will take the last value that was present before this render cycle. Okay. So are you getting my point?
Prince, I think it will be better if we can just show everyone how to write the same a class based component as a functional component. So can we just create a class based component for the same component that you have just shown?
Yeah. Uh, do you guys know what class-based components are?
I think everyone who has worked on React knows the difference between the class-based components and the functional component. But since the state management and functional component is something relatively new, we can show a difference between state management in functional component and state management in class-based component.
Yeah. So let's create a class-based component for it. So every class-based component will extend react.component, and we can just leave the generic type. So for this, if we want to render something, we have a render method, and that will return our HTML portion. So suppose we have a div, and here we have current value. Let's initialize current value. So whenever like so instead of using the hook here, we can use the widget did component update and component did mount functions from react component module.
Friends, I think we will have to initialize the initial value in the
File.
constructor first.
Sorry, where?
Uh, we will have to initialize the initial value in the constructor first. Constructor.
You mean here?
Yes. This dot state. No. Not here, but inside the constructor.
Yeah, React component provides a state and
Yeah.
other things by default, props
Yes.
by default, right?
This dot state is equal to yeah, bracket open, curly braces open, and then current value. Current value. I think we can just skip the super function.
Yeah, because we are not providing any props here.
Yes. So
I think we don't need to pass it in the constructor.
yes, we can just remove the constructor and define directly in the class. We can remove the this dot thing as well. So here we are basically initializing our current value variable in our state. And can you create a functional component as well to show the difference how we initialize our state in a functional component?
So here we can use state dot current value. Sorry, it should be this dot state dot current value. And here we'll have current value and set current value. And we'll use a React hook use state with initial value 0.
I think we have missed const.
Yep.
So in class-based component, we have the set state function to update the state.
Yes.
But okay, I think Prince, we do not need to write the set state function. It is already there in the React component.
Yeah, I'm just overriding it.
Oh, so I think
we don't need to override it even.
Yes, we don't need to override it. So in a class-based component, we have set state, and but in a functional component, we have a set current value function, which is provided by the user state React hook.
Now let's create a onClick method to see the difference between the set state methods here.
Uh, I think we'll have to add this.
Yes. You can just copy this from here. Where is it giving error?
Const Prince, I think we have to declare it as a variable and then as a error function. Yes. So as you all can see, a functional managing state in a functional component is much shorter as compared to managing state in a class-based component.
So as you can see that in class-based component we have to write this much code just for performing a small action. We can just call a arrow function here and directly set current value to whatever we want to change, and then we won't need this function.
Yeah. So as you can see, a functional component is much shorter as compared to a class-based component. And with introduction of use state hook in React version 20, it is very easy to replace all the class-based components with functional component.
Yeah. Any doubts, anyone?
Yes, Prince. I think we can continue with our slides.
Yeah. So just like without taxes it is not possible to build a functioning country, so without mutability it is very hard to change the is- state. Okay, it is very hard to manage the state. So facts are immutable, like we cannot change facts. Like the sun rises in the east, it is a fact and we cannot change it, but the state of a thing in the present is not a fact. So we can say that current value to 0 at the time of initialization of the component is a fact, but then it can be changed. So when we inquire about the state at a given time, then only we can say that our state is a fact at that point of time. But if the time changes, our state won't be a fact anymore, it will change its value. So front ends are mostly about communicating, storing and changing the present state of things. So state management is all about how we manage the mutations and side effects of those mutations. So here if we so we are managing the mutations and side effects by calling the set state function of React class based component. And here we are doing the same thing by set current value hook, use state hook. Okay, so this is the way how mutations and immutation side of things work. So what is Mobx? So Mobx says that anything that can be derived from the application state should be done automatically. So it is like a magic. We don't have to call the render function whenever we modify our state. Mobx handles all those stuffs for you. So Mobx has four core concepts and they are observable. So observable is something that defines a trackable field that stores the state. State is basically the data. Okay. So let's see here. So we have a cart and that is a observable. Okay. And it contains item count and last modified. And then we are outputting the card dot item count and then we are increasing the count. So you can see that the item count is still showing 0, so it will not update the console automatically. So for that we have reactions. So reactions are something that that would just before reactions, let's see something more, that is, let's put this above the console log. So now the item count will increase, and when we inquire about card dot item count, it will give us the output as 1. So this is basic programming, this is nothing new. Okay, so how does observable affect this? So alone observable can is not of much use, so for that we need some reactions, and Mobx provides us with some reactions such as auto run. So what auto run is, it will take a callback and it will run every time our state is changed. So now let's move this again back down. Here we are changing our state, that is mutating, because Mobx supports mutation. So let's see, let me clear this console. So first console is from the method that was run automatically. Okay, so item count in the cart is 0 because initially our item count was 0, and then we mutated the state with increasing the item count. Okay, so as soon as we changed our state, auto run automatically fires up and prints the output here. So any doubt with that?
So basically, if we update the item count property multiple times,
Hmm.
this console log will automatically run itself as soon as the property is changed.
Yes.
Uh, can, can we add something else and see what is the result here?
Yeah, like see, I'm increasing the item count 2 times now.
Okay.
So it auto run will run 2 times apart from the first time when it was run during the execution of this code.
Okay, so if we use this in context with React, so this means our our code will not need to re-render itself to print the new value in the UI.
Yeah, for that there is a observer property that is provided by Mobx React
Okay.
that is used to observe the changes in any observable. So we'll come to
Okay.
that. Let's
Okay.
see the actions and compute it first. Okay, so right now you can see that we are mutating the state from anywhere. Okay, so for that Mobx provides a action. So this is similar to the action that you have seen in Redux or any other language that you use. So action will also take a function, and we should move all this code to our action. So this is basically a good practice to change our state from actions, and we can enforce this. So how do we enforce this? We can configure, and we can enforce actions. We can set it to true. Now this action will not run automatically. We will have to call it. So see, now our action is fired, and as soon as our state changes, auto run is run, and the logging is done. Now if we try to modify our state from outside our actions, it will give us an error. Okay, it's not giving error here, I don't know why. But if you use it in React, it will just throw an error that you cannot modify your state from outside an action.
I think this happens every time with live programming where unexpected things occur.
Yeah. So let's see our React app. So currently this counter is using the React hooks, and you can see that this whole component is rebuilding. We can check that in profiler. So these things are available from the React DevTools Chrome extension. So you can download it and check it on any website that is using React. So let's start profiling and see here. So when I increased my counter, our counter view is rebuilt and it was re-rendered because hooks changed, and this was re-rendered because props changed. So let's see the code of this counter application. So this is our counter view. It is a functional component and we are using React hooks to manage the state. Now on the button click, we are just increasing the count and set count. So see this, we cannot just write here count minus minus because we are using const here. So we cannot mutate it directly. React will give us an error. That's why we have to use count minus 1 and count plus 1. So this is basically decrementing and incrementing stuff. Now let's do some refactoring here and change our counter to store part. So let's see our counter store first. So it has a observable count and we are exposing a counter store instance from here. We'll use this throughout our app. Let's go to the count method and instead of using it as a prop, we can just directly use it from the store. And here what we can do is we can just increase our count. Counter store dot count plus plus, because Mobx allows us mutation. Counter store dot count. Okay. This should be minus minus. Now let's see our application. So see, I'm clicking here but it is not reacting to our changes. So what went wrong here? We are changing the observable but we are not observing those changes. So unless we observe those changes, it will not re-render our React component. So how do we do that? So instead of we can wrap it inside a observer that I told you earlier. Now if we restart our application, I think there is some error. Okay, It is showing the cached output. So now if we go to the profiler, and let me clear this log and start. So see, now our counter is changing and we are not getting the highlights even. So let's see what changed. So here only this view changed rather than the whole counter view, which was changing earlier when we used the React hooks. So this is how Mobx increases the performance. Any doubts in this?
Sir, I have one doubt.
Yeah.
You said that we have whenever we change the state in Mobx, we always doing that no the actions between the actions.
Yes.
Then only it can track.
No, it can track if we do it outside of actions also. We need to enforce it. So it is not a good practice to just directly change our store variable from here. Okay. So for that, what we need to do is we need to enforce actions like we did earlier. So
Yeah, in
let's
that stack
configure.
builds.
Now if we will try to change our store from here by clicking it, it will just throw an error. See, since strict mode is being used, we should not change our state from outside the action. So let's create actions for it in the counter store. So here you can directly use the annotation action, and we can just increment, and here we will change the count to +1, and for decrement also we can directly mutate our observable field here, and inside our counter view we can just call counter store dot decrement, and here we can call counter store dot increment. So now it will work absolutely fine. So see, again it is working fine, and it is not giving us the highlights because Mobx uses memo behind the scenes, and React dev tools do not work with memo. They do not show the highlights that are cached.
Okay, I got it.
So this is how you should do it in your application. We should not just start changing the store from anywhere inside the app, because it will be hard to track if some error occurs. Any doubt, anyone? Yeah.
Sorry, before proceeding, I just want to tell everyone that we have a form shared in the messages section. Please fill out the form so that we can contact you later with any update that we have in our meetup group. Nishma has shared the form in the chat section. Prince, we can proceed.
Yeah, so we have seen observable, we have seen actions, and we have seen the reactions. Now let's see computed. So for that, I have a to-do list built already. Let's just remove the counter and so let's add a new to do here first. So I want a pizza. And let's check profiler. So you can see that only this part changed. Let's see the code of this to understand what's happening behind the scenes. So let's go to the to-do list here. So in the to-do list, we have a to-do store, and similarly it is using to-dos, which is a array of to-do, and this has a string and a boolean completed, and these fields are also observable. So it's not necessary that you have to make a separate store and then you can make these things observable. You can make anything observable, and then there is a action to add to do, and there is a computed, which returns the completed to do's count, but we are not showing this anywhere right now. So let's see how this works. So computed is basically a getter that is used to return something from our observable state. So right now we want the completed to do's count. So here we are filtering out the to do's that are completed, and then we are returning the length of the array. Okay. So we can have like hundreds of computed in a large scale application, but the best thing about computed is it will not get executed unless we are observing it, observing to the changes that is made by this computed. So let's see that. See, in current application we are not showing the count anywhere. So let's add a new to do, and see we don't have any console log for the to do store computed, that computed is being called. Now let's add a display here to show our completed count. So I'll go inside our to do list, and here you can just make a to do completed count, and we need to define this. So for that I'm using a React functional component again, and this will be observer. And here we can observe the completed to do's count. So it is a getter, we can just directly use it here. See, computed is called because now we are observing to the changes that are being made to the to-do list. Let's add a new to-do. See, computed is called again. So you can have as many computeds as you want in your application, but only those will be called that are currently being observed. So if we remove the observer from here, okay, this is getting called, but it should not get called. Okay, something wrong is happening here. I will put the updated code and see what's wrong going on here. It should not be called. The computed value should not be called. So this is how Mobx works.
Prince, I think we have all understood the benefits of Mobx. It is basically faster as compared to Redux.
Yeah.
But there should be, or I want to ask if there is any disadvantage of using Mobx.
Well, I have been using Mobx in every React application, and
Okay.
it can scale very easily. So I don't think so that there is any disadvantage right now.
Okay. And how easy is it to basically set up Mobx in an application?
Yeah. So you can just import two packages. So for example, when you are working with React, so Mobx is independent of React. It can be used with the Vue, Flutter, Angular, anything. So when you are working with React, you have to download these two packages, Mobx and Mobx React, and then you can get started. It's as simple as that. You can just
Okay.
create your store, and then
Okay.
you have your actions that mutate your store. So
Okay.
contradicting from Redux, if you want to add Redux to your application, then for this much task only you have to create 2 3 files. You have to create a separate action files, you have to create a separate reducer file. So the reducer is the point in the Redux applications that tells when to re-render the UI. But
Yes.
with Mobx, it is automatically done as soon as the state is changed
Yep.
by using
Okay.
the observer.
Okay.
So
So
this,
basically, setting up Mobx is much easier as compared to setting up Redux.
yes,
And I really agree that setting up Redux can be very complicated, uh, especially if you are using TypeScript with React.
yes. So this is how the Mobx cycle works. You have actions that update your observable state, and these observable state will notify your computed values, or you can directly use your observable values like we used in the counter one, and that would trigger your side effects like render. So this is it for Mobx. Any doubts, anyone?
I would request everyone to fill out the form that has been shared in the chat section before leaving. It will really help us to contact you again for any job related opportunity or any new meetup that we conduct.
Yeah, and if you are interested in open source development and you are working with Flutter, then we have a open source project coming up. So we can do fill the form so that we can contact you if you are interested. I think we can conclude the session now.
Yes.
Where is
Dinesh is
the
asking
form?
where is the form link. I'll just copy and share the link again.
Right. Thank you, Rohit. You can share the form, and thank you, Prince. Thank you, everybody who joined this session. If there are any queries and questions that you have, Rohit can share his details with you. You can reach out to him. So can Prince. If you have any questions related to the session, or you want to learn more in depth about the topic, you can reach out to Prince and Rohit. And please do fill out the form. It'll be helpful for you and for us, both of us, to make and let such sessions happen on a regular basis.
Prince, can you share your contact details as well?
Yeah. You can connect with me on LinkedIn.
I think, guys, it's a wrap.
Yes, I think we are done for today's session.
Perfect. Thank you for connecting with us, you all.